Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Resistance broadcast. I'm John. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful little podcast as we talk about Star Wars and a lot of cool topics that we'll be getting into today. Some rumors, some confirmed information, and it's all about our favorite movie franchise. Again, I'm John. With me, as always, is Lacey Gillerin. Lacey, how we doing?
Hi guys, I'm doing okay. Unfortunately the kids are sick this week.
Same.
So your girl's a little tired tonight.
Samesies.
But I haven't felt this great all week in that I'm here with John talking about Star Wars, so that's awesome. It's like a nice couple of hours together to talk Star Wars. No, it is a highlight of my week. I love being here with you guys. So join us in the chat and send us your questions. # Resistance.
That's right. We are doing Ask the Resistance later in the show. Double-barreled action from your contributions to the show, because we are doing Ask the Resistance and Resistance transmissions at the end of the show, because we only have one main segment today, which is sort of going to be a hybrid of a discussion plus Resistance report, because we have to do a lot of speculating on some of the rumors that have been coming around, because official Star Wars news has been relatively quiet, and we'll certainly get into that on the movie front. But before we get into the show, as Lacey mentioned, super chats are available if you want your comment read on the show at any point. If you have a question that you want guaranteed in Ask the Resistance, you can use the super chat there. Also, if you just want to submit those questions, use hashtag Ask the Resistance. Any Star Wars questions that are cool to discuss on the show, we will get to later. And we just want to say, I want to say quickly, next week I will not be here. I am taking the family to Disney, so I will be out, which means TRB, unless Lacey wants to do a solo show, which could be dangerous.
It might be. I don't know.
Like Lacey just goes live and just lets it rip.
That might be the messiest show TRB's ever had, so we'll see how it goes. Probably not. We do have an episode lined up for next week instead of the live show, which John's going to get to in a second. So you guys aren't going to lose anything. We just won't be doing a live show.
Yeah, we are putting out an episode of Nerdy and Nice on Monday, and then also on Monday, probably late morning, early afternoon, we're going to be putting out an interview that we're going to be doing with Steve Sansweet and Ann Newman of Rancho Obi-Wan. We're going to talk to them about their upcoming fundraiser for Rancho Obi-Wan that's going to be taking place on Saturday, October 5th in Seattle. So we're going to give you all the details on that interview, and also just get really nerdy with them on the collection side of Star Wars, and ask them some questions that I know I've been wondering about their museum, and all the styling that you get from a TRB interview is going to be right there in the shining spotlight of collectibles. And we look forward
to that because I mean, obviously, look at my screen. I'm a big collector myself, so this is right up my alley. It's
gonna be great.
How to
having them on.
Yeah, how I enjoy fandom, how a lot of people enjoy fandom, and I just can't wait to hear the perspective of over the years how collecting has changed.
Yeah, I agree. Now, as you're listening to this, just a few requests, if you don't mind. One, if you're listening on an audio podcast app, if you could please make sure you're subscribed to the show. But also, if it has a rating system, please rate TRB. It takes a few seconds. You can probably do it while you're listening right now, whether that's Apple or Spotify. If you can give us 5 stars, that'd be cool. Leave a review to put some smiling faces on your screens here. That'd be cool too. And then the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@TRB podcasts. Subscribe there for free, and you get all your videos, because we have a lot of cool plans that we're going to be revealing in the months ahead, which is going to include additional exclusive content on the channel. But most importantly, I hope you're having a good time listening, whether you're live or you're listening on podcast apps or after the live broadcast. We're here to have a good time talking Star Wars and getting to the bottom of things. So, Lacey,
I want to say something really quick, John, not to cut you off.
Absolutely.
I see Nikki in the chat talking about dealing with the hurricane. I know Mike's and Frank are also talking about that.
Oh, yeah.
Please stay safe, guys. This episode will be here no matter what.
Yeah.
So remember to stay safe where you are. We're hoping for the best for you guys. And hopefully we're here for you to bring up some energy and excitement a little bit during kind of a scary time. But
yeah, be safe.
Stay safe.
Yeah, we hope everyone's okay. And hopefully it's dies down and passes or doesn't even hit you. And if it does, hopefully everyone and everything is okay. So we think
Mhm.
everyone down there in the southeast of the U.S. As we travel to a galaxy far, far away in our first segment, which we call the Resistance Report.
It's the Resistance.
All right. So I figure we start the show off with something that's not controversial at all. So we'll get into the latest on the Acolyte. Disney,
Oh, jeez Louise.
yeah. The Acolyte has replaced The Last Jedi as the Voldemort of Star Wars fandom.
It really has. It
You do
really
not
has.
mention it by name. But we are, and we're going to talk about it because Forbes just put out an article, I believe today, that
Mhm.
Disney has revealed, I guess maybe to ease the, you know, slings and arrows headed their way about their decision on the Acolyte. Disney revealed that the Acolyte was over budget at $230 million, which is $50 million more than the initial reported budget, which a lot of people said was already very high for what they got. And on top of it, it is being reported via Disney through Forbes that it hit $230 million at the very beginning of post production. So do with that what you will. Uh, Crazy expensive show. We're not going to spend too much time on it. We've talked about the fallout. We did a whole episode on the fallout of the cancellation of the Acolyte, trying to get to the facts of the matter and things like that. But one thing that's important to remember is, just like I do with Solo, it's like have your show your emotions about it, show your love for this stuff, and fight for more of it, but also
Mhm.
recognize the numbers and the reality of why we aren't getting that stuff. And Solo's box office, with the Acolyte's ratings falling out of the top 10 in Nielsen after week 3. And I completely understand about all of the review bombing and the hate thrown towards that show from the minute early castings were announced. It got really ugly out of the gate, so it was already happening before the show came out. But in spite of that, the show performed really well in the first week. The first 2 episodes did really well. I think over 11 million views or something like that. And then after that is when the fall off happened, which to me says, yes, all of that existed. The review bombing, the hate, the disgusting things said to people who were involved with the show, but also people who said, I'm going to watch this show anyway, in spite of any of that, or I don't even know any of that happened, and I'm going to watch the show, did not return. And that was ultimately what put the nail in the coffin, in addition to this new report of an even higher budget for the show. So, Lacey, I don't know if you had any final thoughts to put a bow on this, because I don't want to see Lucasfilm and Disney being dragged over the Acolyte because I don't want it to hurt Skeleton Crew. Like people say, The Last Jedi hurt Solo. I want to be able to turn the page, respect what came before, but turn the page to what's ahead. So, any sort of closing thoughts on the Acolyte based on this new information that came out?
Well, I think this defends what we were saying during and post Acolyte, where there has been a big, I would say, vocal section of fandom that said that the reason this show got canceled is because of negativity from fans. And you and I have been very adamant that while that is a variable in a situation, it is not the overwhelming thing that Disney's considering. Disney's thinking about money, views, and more money.
Mm-hmm.
And this just shows you that this show was $230 million. Like, that's a lot of money to spend on one project, let alone a Star Wars project for Disney.
Yeah.
They could have made a lot of other TV shows or movies with this money. We had talked before about, believe on Nerdy and Nice, how they let it out, how Robert Downey Jr. is making $100 million for the next films for Marvel. So 2 Robert Downey Juniors is equal to this show, basically, and the amount of other things they could have made in that money. So they listed out like Longlegs, all these other independent horror films, some other smaller budget films that, you know, you look at Beetlejuice, they were like, you need to keep this below $100 million or something like that. I believe it
Yeah.
cost them $100 million to make. So they made Beetlejuice in less money with all the practical effects, with all the sets, with major casting, with Michael Keaton, Catherine O'Hara, etc. Still less money than this, less than
Yeah.
half.
Yep.
And when you're looking at this Forbes article, they do break down staff pay for Star Wars. And this show, the pay for staff was more expensive than pretty much The Force Awakens and Rogue One combined. It looks like on their graph based on what the pay was. It's
Yeah.
just it comes down to money, guys, and it comes down to what's beneficial to the company. And I'm not saying that's always the best choice. Like, obviously, you want people to have creative freedom to explore stories they want to tell and to have diversity on screen, and representation does matter, and all those things are true. But time and time again, we need to recognize that if you boil all this down, these are production companies. These are big corporations that need to make money. That's all they care about at the end of the day. Now, yes, they'll tell you that they want you to have a good experience and they want, to tell stories that matter. No, they don't. They want to make money because then they can make more stuff and then they can make more money. So when you're upset that something is canceled, we're on the same wavelength. We didn't want Solo to stop. We wanted the rest of the series, which they had contracted for. We wanted more Willow. We wanted more, potentially more Acolyte or other Star Wars features, but it's not happening. And it comes down to money. And I think whether you like this choice to release this information or not, I think it's a smart choice because it does let fans and criticism and critical people know, hey, it's not that we were listening to these people that didn't like it or listening to these people that do like it. We're boiling it down to this is what money, this is where the money's at, and we can't afford to do this again. And
Yeah.
I have to say, as someone that is managing budgets in my real life, whether it be for my own life and or for work, you can't go into something and blow the budget up to $230 million before post-production and expect it to be a success. Like,
Man.
there are budgets in place for a reason, and you have
Yeah.
to follow them. And if they're not followed or things balloon like crazy, whether it be this project or Solo or whatever, that falls on the showrunner, that falls on the people in charge that let it get to that point. That means someone somewhere didn't say no. And that falls to Leslie Headland, unfortunately. Like, you should have said no. You should have budgeted better, and not ballooned your budget, and someone shouldn't have signed off on it. So,
Yeah. I'm with you. And by comparison, a lot of people consider Game of Thrones to be the most visually epic cinematic TV show ever made.
mhm, mhm.
And that show cost about 100 million per season, including the final season. I think it was reported it cost $90 million, and that was only a few years ago.
How many
So,
episodes per season?
8.
8. Okay. So still the
And
standard 8. Okay.
yeah, and so I mean, when you think about it, the Acolyte cost as much to make almost 2.5 seasons of Game of Thrones.
Yes. Yep.
So that and without even getting through post-production. So the Forbes article says it was in the early stages, beginning of post-production. So what got cut? Like, what didn't they get to do that would have maybe made this show look the way we would expect a $200 million show to look? Did
Can I
visual
guess?
effects get axed? Did reshoots get canceled?
Mhm.
A lot of stuff like that. So it's tough to swallow this. It certainly is. And you have to put some responsibility on the showrunner, Leslie Headland. That's exactly what her job title is to keep
Mhm.
her show on schedule, on budget. And it looks like that was not the case here. But also, ultimately, it was a Disney call, and they said we're not going to be moving forward with it. Now, here's the other part of it is like, what where does the Acolyte or other Disney Plus shows bring in revenue? Because like you could look at Mando and say like, well, that launched everything, and that's what got
Merchandise.
people
Yeah.
signed up for this Star Wars show, The Mandalorian, and then you got the Grogu stuff and the Mando merch, and that was clearly a very successful venture. But the Acolyte, like, did people sign up for Disney Plus to watch the Acolyte? I don't know. And then like, did Acolyte merch fly off the shelves? I didn't hear anything about that. So ultimately, you're looking at something to sustain subscribers, and it didn't. And there you go. And yeah, it sucks as a Star Wars fan, because then you go out in the real world, and whether you're at a gas station wearing a Star Wars shirt and someone says like, oh, you watched that new Star Wars show? I didn't really like it or whatever. Then you got to be like, yeah, all right, have a good one. And it's just like tough to be out there being a Star Wars fan right now, because we want to defend our franchise. We love it. It's like, I make the analogy about the Yankees. They've been taking it on the chin the past 2 days trying to clinch the AL East. And I got to hear it from my friends like, the Yankees are going to blow it. They stink. And I'm like, all right, you know? So we want it to be good. We want to root for it so badly. And that's why, we're going to turn our eyes to Skeleton Crew and hope we can be proud of what they do there. But
I hope so.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I think they cut on visual effects, if I was to guess. And I pointed this out when we were watching the episode. I believe it was episode 3, when they go through the woods with all the bugs, and they had these like big kind of chunky model bugs on the trees that looked good, but I feel like they should have had, and I said at the time, visual effects of like them moving a little bit, something to make it look like they were alive, because they looked nothing like they were alive. And then all of a sudden this alive one comes flying out of the tree. So I felt like, I was like, that just seemed like like they cut corners here, because usually there's whether it be movement, noise, something. And it was very much like, we're walking through a set. Oh no, look up there. And then there was one bug. It just didn't seem like the risk was there. So I would assume it's probably visual effects got cut.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people are correcting me. I see in the chat that every other Game of Thrones season was 10 episodes. So it's even less per episode on their budget.
Yeah.
Watch like 2 episodes of any Game of Thrones season and watch The Acolyte, and understand that The Acolyte was 230% more expensive than Game of Thrones, and explain to me how. I want to know what's going on.
I would love to see a breakdown of where money went. Forbes is claiming that a good chunk of the money went to staffing, which is possible. Maybe they hired a bunch of people that they didn't need, or a bunch of freelancers made up a majority of the crew, they're saying, which could go into, instead of paying people full time to be there all the time on a salary base, you're paying them hourly. So if they run over, then that's a whole cost.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's a lot of money, because they're saying they paid about 20 million pounds in staff costs. That still doesn't add up to $230 million.
Yeah, $230 million is an expensive Star Wars movie.
Can I have like $5, Disney? Can you just like send me some money? Get all this money. I'd love.
They'll be taking more of mine next week, so don't worry about that. Well, the people think Disney pays me. I ain't getting free churros next week, that's for sure.
I know. Everyone claims we get paid. I wish I got paid. Can we get
pay
paid?
me. Yeah, just pay me. They're like, not after that segment. But moving on to the future, we have this Scooper, whatever you want to call him, Daniel RPK. He has like 300,000 followers. He has a big Patreon, and he's certainly been wrong on some things, but he's certainly been right on some things. I tried to look up some of his older reports, and he was one of the first I saw to report that Wesley Snipes was going to come back as Blade in Deadpool 3. And that was like 2-3 years ago. So the guy clearly has sources, and this is, he went full Star Wars this week, apparently. And I came across these on Twitter because
they were everywhere.
So I'm just going to run through these stories, and then Lacey, I want you to, speak to all or any of them. So the first one is,
well, why don't we go through each one?
Oh, I don't want to do each one. You want to do each one?
Okay.
Only because there's not a lot of meat on this,
Okay. All right.
If you decide you want to go through each one after I read them, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
This is a partnership here.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So the first one, Taika Waititi's Star Wars film is reportedly on indefinite hold, and that's in quotes.
Mhm.
This one I feel like everyone sort of knew already. Correct me if I'm wrong. It says the Mandalorian and Grogu film will reportedly conclude Din Djarin's story. There won't be a season 4 of The Mandalorian. The character will appear in other Star Wars projects.
Mhm.
And then the third one here, which we've heard from, I believe Christian Harloff reported this like 2 years ago or
He
something like that.
did. He
That
did.
Cal Kestis, Cameron Monaghan's character from the Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor video games, will reportedly make his live-action debut in a Disney Plus Star Wars project.
Mm.
So those are the 3 stories out of this guy. Again, these aren't confirmed. These have to be considered as rumors. But keep in mind, this guy has a track record. He has a large audience, and he has been right a bunch in the past. So,
Mhm.
and yeah, I do see he's, from what I understand, better with Marvel than Star Wars. So we're just going to take these as rumors, but also maybe try to compare them to other things we have heard, and like we do around here, is connect some dots. So, Lacey, what's your take on these rumors? Do you buy them? And if you want to go one by one, that's cool, but take it away.
Well, I don't want to be that person, but I'm going to be, which is with the Mandalorian and Grogu film being concluding Din Djarin's story. I said this years ago when they first announced, or last year when they announced this for the first time, that they were doing a movie. I said, like, oh, clearly this is the end of the story. Then they're not doing another series. But then they never said that they weren't doing another season. They were like, oh, this is just what the story is now. But I've always thought, like, you can't go to TV to movie and then back to TV. That's such a weird transition. You usually go TV to movie or movie. It's like a one-way ticket.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going round trip.
Yeah.
So I completely believe this is true. I've said this when they made the announcement. I thought that pivot, which was made with the team and Bob Iger returning, was because they wanted to make a big splash for the kind of end of his story, which makes sense. But that means, by the way, John, that the other part of this rumor is that the character will appear in other Star Wars projects. We know this. I don't think he's dying in this movie. I think we're getting a
Yeah.
happy ending from or not Robert Downey Jr. Oh my God, I was thinking that, but it's because of Iron Man from Jon Favreau. We're getting a happy ending for this character in Grogu at the end of this movie,
Yeah.
because that's what Jon Favreau loves. So that I would say is true if I was to guess. The Taika story I also think is true. We heard about this a while ago, years ago. It all blends together sometimes. And we heard that he had a writer helping him. Then the next story was, oh yeah, he's working on it, but he can't figure out the middle. He has a beginning and he has an end, but he can't figure out the middle. And it's like, okay, well, the middle is the story, sir. Not really sure about that. And then he was doing all these other projects. And then his Thor movie came out, which did not great. And now it's on hold. It's that Star Wars curse they sign on when they're popular. Then they put out something else that's not popular and then they go on hold. He's on hold with Patty Jenkins, Ryan Johnson, joining the table over there, Taika. So
They're in the Star Wars
draft folder.
afterlife waiting room with Beetlejuice.
Yeah, limbo.
Yeah, Ryan Johnson sprinkles some salt onto Taika's head, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Yeah. They just have someone at the window being like, and now serving three, and they look up and it's like 87 is their number. And you're like, oh.
Right.
Yeah. And then the Cal Kestis thing, like you said, Christian Harloff, we gotta give him props because he brought this up first years ago.
Yeah.
I think right after the game came out, or was it after something else? Something happened where he said, oh yeah, this is definitely happening. And I know that Cal Kestis has been uh the actor has been at several different Disney premieres. Like he was
Mhm.
at the Acolyte, he was at the Rise of Skywalker when we were John.
Mhm.
He was at a couple other things. Like he keeps going to these events. If
Yeah.
you weren't still involved in Disney, why would you, or in Star Wars, Disney Star Wars? Why would you keep going? I think it's an easy pivot because he does TV. That's what he's known for. And he has the following and or audience with the video games that would love to see him make that transition.
And it might make people buy the game after seeing him for the first time in live action. Be like, "Oh, they had
Yeah.
games with this guy? Oh, yeah, I'm gonna go buy those."
Yeah,
And
it also helps that his character in the video game looks exactly like him. So it's not much of a jump
Yeah.
to make that
Yeah.
transition from video game to TV. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I mean, I would say these are mostly true,
Yeah.
but they're kind of easy to guess. Like Taika's project being on hold is one of those rumors that you're like, oh yeah, probably. And then if it isn't on hold, then there's nothing hurt. It doesn't hurt anything for it to be on hold. And if he then announces tomorrow that he's doing his movie, Daniel RPK could be like, well, it was on hold. Now it's not. So it's weird how
Right.
these things sometimes get worded that they're like, oh, yeah, they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And oh, Cal could show up in a live action debut. Yeah, his live action debut could ultimately be like him on a ride somewhere. And like this rumor is true, but it's not this.
He just shows up walking around Galaxy's Edge, and they're like, "Look, he's live."
Yeah, live
And in
action.
action. Yeah.
But I would assume the way these are written, presented right now, that these are all true.
Yeah. Well, the Taika thing is wild because that was announced in, wasn't it a part of that big webcast in 2020?
It was with the Schoolhouse Rock type logo.
Yeah, when the Acolyte was announced, when Lando was announced.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Yep.
they had a logo. They had the old school Jedi logo in it. Like,
Yeah.
there was clearly something got greenlit. Like, there was a story. So if we're 4 years later and this guy who's won an Oscar for screenplay can't figure out a story for Star Wars, this thing's probably been shelved a while ago. And like, Taika's probably just hoping like it's been enough time where people stop asking me so I can stop saying like my typewriter broke or something like that, you know?
What kind of accent was that?
That was authentic New Zealand, actually.
Got it. Got
Yeah.
it.
But that, yeah, does not shock me because let's talk about, well, and I'll touch on the other two first, then go back to that because the movies,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm a little worried, but the Mandalorian and Grogu, I remember Favreau saying he wrote season 4 while season 3 was filming, and I remember thinking that was a big deal because he was clearly writing something with story continuity, and I love that. So I think with the shift that they've clearly made from Disney overall back to theaters, you know, Moana 2 changed to a movie from a Disney Plus series.
Which they just finished the voice work on that, and that's
Yeah.
supposed to come out like 2 months from now. It's very
Yeah,
surprising.
well, hey. Lando was a series. Now that's being worked as a movie. There's a lot of patterns of this happening. I could see Bob Iger saying, like, why would we take the most successful Star Wars show and not have the guy who's making it, who's one of the most successful directors today, bring this on the big screen? So I think they had a meeting and they're like, we need movies. A lot of stuff is sputtering right now. Can you make this a movie, John? He's like, yeah, I can. I'm Jon Favreau. I'm the king. So I think that's what happened. And I agree. I've been saying that for a long time. You can do it, but going from the lower platform to the biggest platform and then back to the lower platform I don't like that. So I do think this has to be like the grand finale for the story of The Mandalorian. And that doesn't mean, you know, Din Djarin can't go on. Grogu, I think, is going to keep going, whether that's with Din Djarin or not. Whether Pedro wants to collect a check to do a voice, that's up to him. And then the Cal Kestis thing. Yeah, I mean, if 2 different people are saying this now, one was a few years ago, why not? So we'll see where he pops up, what makes sense. Maybe they age him up a little bit and put him in something like Ahsoka. Who knows what they can do a lot with him. So we'll see there. But back to the movie thing, you know, we had heard from a friend a while back that it sounds like a lot of things are being put on hold, except for what's in production, which is The Mandalorian and Grogu, and eventually Ahsoka season 2, which is going to start filming next summer. Well, that's done. Andor's finished. Yeah. And I think they're in post-production. So if that's the case, that means Mangold's movie, that means the Rey movie. So then I looked it up a little bit. And I was like, I looked at like Mangold Star Wars, and nothing has been said about this movie in 6 months. No articles, no nothing. Mangold hasn't talked about it. And I don't know if it has to do with the lack of success of the Indiana Jones movie. Yeah. It could. But I'm concerned over what that movie what the status of that is. And then the Rey movie, same thing. Charmin Obaid-Chinoy, nothing about her since mid-June. And now that's almost 4 months ago now. Meanwhile, Daisy Ridley's out promoting all these other things, constantly being asked about her movie. And I feel bad for her because they don't have a script yet. The last reports were that they added additional writers in addition to Stephen Knight. So she's in this weird, she's just sort of like thrown to the wolves inadvertently, where on every other press tour she's on, she's getting asked about it and she doesn't have anything to say. So now that we're a year and a half away from they brought her out on stage, the new hero, the little girl, the next generation's hero, the new Luke Skywalker for the next generation, she is back. She's getting a movie. It's taking place 15 years later. And it's a year and a half later, and she doesn't have any more information to give us. I feel horrible for her because I think her star is rising. I really hope they can figure this one out more than anything. The Mangold thing, like, whatever. Like, if that happens, it happens. But and it's not, if you're listening to this and you're in your 30s or 40s or whatever, and you're like, yeah, Rey, whatever. Like, Rey is for the next generation. Like the 5-year-olds who watched Force Awakens and never watched a Star Wars before were like, oh, that is my new favorite character ever, and I love her. And those are the kids who are now becoming teenagers who are going to be the ones buying the tickets and going to these movies and stuff. So I really hope that would be such a dagger to like a next generation of Star Wars fans if this falls through, because if that movie falls through, Daisy Ridley's going to be like, I'm out. That's it. I'm out. Like, so I'm nervous about that one. I really hope, because that is the main through line still. And I don't know what's going on. So my hope is that there's a reset happening, and it doesn't mean all these projects are finished, but maybe it's like, let's all hold on a second now. Is Kathleen Kennedy staying? The latest reports were that she's staying. Her contract ends this year, but she's staying through Q2, which will take her past Celebration. I'm sure at Celebration they're going to have to make some big announcements about what's going on, because I think we're all kind of like, what is going on after Skeleton Crew? We got Andor and we got Ahsoka filming, but what is going on with all these movies you announced? We just want to know. We want to be vested. Marvel is zooming by and lapping us with all these movies. They work for the same studio. What's going on with our favorite movie franchise? So I think Celebration Japan is going to be so pivotal for what this future landscape of the franchise looks like. I'm hopeful. I'm excited. I'm hoping to hear that there is a final script for the Rey movie and filming starts later that summer or something like that. I'm still being optimistic and hopeful about that. But going into it, it's sort of like they must have hit some sort of reset where they're like, if we're going to be changing regimes or what, we got to get back on track here and start fresh. And it doesn't mean these projects are done, but it wouldn't shock me if you've seen different names being changed with directors and that sort of thing. Because like Lacey said at the top, ultimately for Disney, Bob Iger, it's his legacy to not mess this up again, because he did when he left and left it to Bob Chapek. He needs to leave and let this thing grow. It's about making the consumers happy, making the shareholders happy, and all of that stuff. It's about business at the end of the day. And we can say all we want about the things we love, but ultimately, like the reason why there's not a Solo sequel is they don't think it's good for business. So we'll see what happens. I'm still staying hopeful, but we are in a very strange time. Like, thankfully, Skeleton Crew is coming out, because if we didn't have a new Star Wars show coming out, and aside from Mandalorian and Grogu, there wasn't anything happening with all these other movies that were officially announced, including Sean Levy, which wasn't officially announced, but he said he's doing it.
He says he's still doing it. He says he's still working on it. And supposedly he turned down doing Avengers to do Star Wars.
Yeah. It's
But there is an interesting conversation happening over on Instagram right now, so I want to give a shout out to these people. So our buddy Adam Witt is in the comments over on Instagram and watching the live stream. Thanks for watching, guys. He said Mangold Star Wars was originally Boba Fett, which then became Mandalorian. So the real issue is them reporting pre-production, which then at 402 Fet said, how could they not have learned announcing movies is a bad idea? I don't want to see any announcements anymore. Just drop a trailer when it's done the weekend before the release, lol. Which then Adam says, they didn't used to tell people what they were working on. Like if the Phantom Menace was supposed to be out in 98, they just tell us that part. And Adam then responds with, love you. Love you too, Adam.
Love you too, Adam. Love you too.
No, I think you guys are making some good points in the chat on Instagram, also on the chat on YouTube, that I think as fans, we want to be supportive. We want to root these movies on, this company, stand by it, what they're doing. We should be the brand ambassadors, the super fans that are like, yeah, we're so empowered. We love this more. And it's hard to be excited when it seems like it's fumble after fumble after fumble. I am in the same boat of like, tell me when it's locked, tell me when we're going, and then I'll be excited, because I just hate the excitement and anticipation that we got from that original investor day in 2020 to now, where it was like, hey, you're getting this and you're getting this and you're getting this. Oh, and by the way, the following year, here's a roadmap of everything we're going to do. And then it was just like, okay, just forget we said any of that. And we're actually not going to even mention it in future interviews. We're actually going to tell you that that didn't happen. And we're going to just tell you that these things are happening, but discussions are being had. But it is interesting to me that with all this news, which, like you, John, I am optimistic. I think that we are going to get some cool stuff from Disney. I think they're reworking things based on the pandemic, which has had long-lasting effects, the strikes, which were needed, which got their point across and got what people deserved. So that has shaken stuff up. But I think also people like Bob Iger coming back in and saying, look, we're doing things differently now. We're going back to things people love, back to IPs that people enjoy, rework it. So that's where we're getting the Mandalorian and Grogu. But there also was rumors the past few weeks that there are projects happening at Star Wars that nobody knows about, that have not been announced, that aren't being discussed. So my hope, like you, John, is next year when we do get to Celebration, they're announcing some of these projects that don't have anything tied to them, that don't have any kind of expectations or baggage or, people that are tied to other projects that might come in when they have time or scheduling differences, et cetera, et cetera.
That are also more than an idea, hopefully. You know what I mean? Like
a fleshed out full idea, as we're hearing from someone like a James Gunn who says, look, we're making these movies when they're ready to be made.
Oh my God,
we're not
James
rushing
Gunn.
them to production. Yeah. So I'm interested to see where they go from here. I think we're in a big pivot period with Lucasfilm and Disney.
I do too.
I'm just hoping that the pivot is the right way and that the couch gets up the stairs, and it's not a pivot that leads us right back down to the bottom of the stairwell. We will see what happens, but I am optimistic, and I think that there's a ton of stuff that we're probably unaware of, but I just get worried, like when we were talking about at the top of this segment of the $230 million budgets, of what things are getting left off the development board to make way for something like that with what we got.
Yeah.
I can't help but think, like, could you have made 5 different TV shows with the price of this one?
Yeah, I don't know about 5, but maybe 2,
Sure.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It would not shock me at all if they overhaul the whole Ray project. They get a more veteran feature film experience director in there.
Please bring in someone that has done a bunch of feature films.
Yeah. And then also, wouldn't shock me, I've said it before, if it winds up being episode 10 and Bob Iger follows the plan he's been doing with all this other stuff, which is we're going to make what people like. And that's why we're getting Toy Story 5. That's why we're getting Incredibles 3. That's why we're getting all these sequels.
Frozen 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
If you just show people Star Wars episode 10, they will come back. Even if they didn't like the sequel trilogy, people love those episodic Star Wars films. They will be there day one in the theater. It will make a ton of money. And I'd be surprised if Bob Iger doesn't make that move. And 50th anniversary of Star Wars coming up. We've talked about it. That could push the Rey movie to that. Warm feelings. Mark Hamill, Anthony Daniels, celebration, 50 years. Boom. Here's episode 10. Here we go.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know. The Taika thing really sounds more and more like the Ryan Johnson situation, where he's like, I got a story, and we're working. And it's like, how are you so good at all these other things? You're able to make all this other stuff, and in 4 years, you can't fix your typewriter? Like, what's going on,
You don't know
man?
what the middle of your story is? It's kind of important.
Yeah. Maybe use a
That means he
laptop.
doesn't even have an outline. If he doesn't have a middle, that means no outline, just the beginning and the end. The bullets aren't there.
Yeah, and just the beginning and an end for a Star Wars movie is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away,
And
and
then
no, his ending is directed by Taika Waititi, so he's got that part, and now he's just got to find that middle part.
Imagine he goes to a meeting and he's like, look, so we're going to start off. And it says in a galaxy. And then at the end, they're, directed by Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
And they're all sitting there like, okay, so like, what's the story? And he's like, well, look, I haven't exactly, gotten that out, but let's circle back on this. Let's circle back.
Yeah. I think we're getting a big. They're gonna chase. I'm telling you, they're gonna chase that Force Awakens feeling as hard as possible in 2027 with a new Rey movie that is going to be called Star Wars Episode 10. And what they're going to say is 1 through 9 is the Skywalker saga, but the story continues on beyond the family. And it's going to be Episode 10. It's going to bring back all those classic feelings, and that's what's going to happen. Bang.
If there's one thing Disney does well, it's nostalgia. So I'm sure they're chasing that feeling like the rest of us are.
Yeah, and Star Wars is naturally nostalgic, So
yeah, yep.
But yeah, we want to know what you all think out there. Are you remaining hopeful, remaining optimistic like us while trying to tread these uncertain waters? We'll get through this together, and there will be more Star Wars, and we will be here together to celebrate it. But that pretty much wraps up that portion of the show. Now, I do know we had some super chats. So one was not a question. So let's get to that one, and then we'll get to Ask the Resistance.
Okay, sure. So first up, we have David Ford. Thank you so much for the super chat. Said actual cost. I said because I was going to say Acolyte. Actual cost of Acolyte reported $230 million. We could have had a big movie release or a third season of Andor for less. No wonder Ed is angry. Who's Ed?
Who is Ed?
I'm not sure who Ed is, but I mean, if anybody's angry about the cost of a show, that's a little silly because it doesn't necessarily impact us in the way that sometimes people think it does. It is just jarring to think that that much money was spent on one show. It's kind of crazy.
It is wild. Yeah, thank you, David.
Appreciate it.
So
let's get into Ask the Resistance.
I've been wondering, what are midichlorians?
Jake Lloyd, come on the pod. I hope you're doing well. That report Clayton did on him was really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Check that out if you haven't yet on Scripps News. Our friend Clayton Sandell. That's his side hustle. His main hustle now is being a Star Wars author.
I know, right? It's weird to say that we know. We're friends with a Star Wars author.
Can you believe that? All right. So Ask the Resistance. Let's get after it with Terry M, who is...
Well, do we want to start with the super chat first?
Oh, I'm sorry, Andrew.
It's okay.
Yep.
First up, Andrew Staley. Thank you so much for the super chat, Andrew. He said, #Ask the Resistance. Any idea why the hotel block reservation for Star Wars Celebration has not been released yet? Thanks. Andrew, that is a great question. It's been a day, guys. You have
Silly
no idea.
Wacy.
Anyway, that is a great question. We have no idea, to be honest. If I'm speaking with my marketing cap on as someone that used to work these kind of shows, it's probably because they're waiting on Disney or Lucasfilm to make that call, or they're waiting for their partner to finalize the hotel blocks and or lock in other things. I know that oftentimes when they have partnerships with certain organizations or certain exhibitors, they try to make sure that those people have their hotels first, then they open up the rest of the blocks to everybody else. It also might be a thing because it's international. The time frame of hotel blocks is different than in the US. But it is a little frustrating. We're in the same boat where we have a backup hotel right now currently for Japan, but we are waiting for that main hotel block to come out
Yeah.
so that we can get that booked. It's like the last thing we're waiting on, basically.
I'm sort of leaning towards a little Home Alone 2 scenario where you and I just sort of hide out in the stage area because we probably
Uh-huh.
might be able to do that. And then when the lights go out at night, we just run amok in the convention. And
I
that's where we
don't know.
stay. You and me, we
No,
stay.
I'm good. I'm good with no.
We'll live stream it. We'll go viral.
Would we?
And then we'll be like Hawk Tuah Girl. We'll have our own super viral moment, and then we'll be the greatest podcast of all time.
All right. Well, Andrew, to answer your question, I would assume that it's just they're waiting on something to lock into place, and or the same team that works on that is working on other shows like New York Comic Con, which is coming up in a couple weeks, and they'll divert their attention back to Celebration once New York Comic Con is over because they have a team that's somewhat smaller. And it always surprises people when they hear that it's a team of 10 people working on New York Comic Con. That is my guess if I was making one. I hope that just like you, that information comes through because it would be great. All right. What do you want to do next, John?
Let us go to Terry M.
What up, Terry?
And Terry asked, what do you think it will take for Skeleton Crew to be called a success? A good viewership. I think that's what it comes down to. I don't pay attention to the fan reviews on sites. I don't really pay attention to critic reviews on sites. I just think if Star Wars fans like it and people have fun with it, and maybe specifically for Skeleton Crew, if they're able to lock in kids to this show and have kids buy into these characters, that will be the ultimate sign of success for this show.
I agree. If they are able to connect with that audience that is middle schoolers and younger, I think they're going to have a hit on their hands. I also think that they need to connect with families with this show specifically. They've been driving attention and or marketing for a long time on diehard Star Wars fans. And I think that's been hurting them because what they really need to get is the people that don't like Star Wars, not the people that already like it. They need to branch out. And if you look at the success of shows in the past, like The Mandalorian, it's because it went past that first wave of Star Wars fans. Like if Bill Gill rolls up and was like, "Oh, I heard about this new show that they have out for Star Wars," I know it's hit a different area of people than the one that I'm in. It's outside my bubble. He knew about Grogu, he knew about Mandalorian, and that's big news to me. Like if he rolls up and is asking me how that is, that's hitting an audience that it has no interest in Star Wars, has no ads being played to them online, is not watching Star Wars, but they're still getting it. That means he's getting it from his news, he's getting it from newspapers, wherever he's reading on his iPad. And I feel like that translates into success, which, like John said, is viewership. If they get a ton of viewers and this thing blows up and people are talking about it and wanting to watch it, that's what matters. And if people aren't watching something, that's when it's not successful, whether we want to accept it or not. And that's why you're seeing such big hits with things like Stranger Things, Bridgerton, with The Mandalorian. It's because they start off slow, they gain momentum, word of mouth specifically, and then they get to a point that everybody's watching it because this person at work told them that they have to watch it. Or, oh yeah, I saw this thing that someone was mentioning it. If my husband is telling me week into Acolyte that it's not good and he heard it's not good, that's bad.
Well,
So-
yeah. And I appreciate the adult demographic targeted Star Wars because people who were younger when Star Wars came out want to see more mature Star Wars. And I understand that. But what made Star Wars such a phenomenon was that people were in the summer of 77 piling their kids into their station wagon with 0 seatbelts and taking them down to the theater to watch this new movie. And it was this family event. People would go to Star Wars movies with their kids. It was everyone could go watch a Star Wars movie. And with Andor and Acolyte, like my kids aren't watching those shows. Like those are dark shows. Those are serious shows. If you want to tell me your 5-year-old sat and watched Andor, I'm sorry, I don't believe you. My son was not going to be able to sit there and watch a show like Andor. Same with Acolyte. Like, yeah, they had Basil and they tried some humor, but it was a dark show.
It was not a funny, interactive.
It showed Jedi doing horrible things.
Yes.
It showed Jedi accepting their murders. It was a dark show, and I'm glad people really enjoyed it, but they really narrowed the path on the net of Star Wars fans who they need to watch this stuff. When you add to the fact that the franchise is still having a hard time expanding internationally the way other franchises are. So Skeleton Crew, it opens it back up. Everybody can watch it. Holiday season. Hopefully people aren't going, they get home from school or whatever, and they're not going out and about on a Tuesday night. Everyone sits down 9 o'clock, watches this, and it gains that buzz. You go back to school the next day.
Hopefully it's earlier.
Did you
9
watch
o'clock's
Skeleton
a little
Crew?
late.
Yeah, I understand that, but I may let my son stay up to watch it. Maybe he'll sleep in, before, instead of getting up at 5 a.m. But, I want him as a first grader to go to school and be like, did you guys see the new Star Wars? And they'll be like, yeah, I saw the new Star Wars. Oh, I got the toy. That's how you build that fan base again. And I think this is the show that could do it. So I'm rooting for it. We'll see what happens. But yeah.
For me, the piece of this success is outside of just the word of mouth stuff. It's that people have to feel like they have to see it. Like they have to create that FOMO aspect, which we haven't seen with Star Wars lately. It's the idea that I need to see this because everybody's seeing it. We saw it with Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. We saw it with, Top Gun Maverick. It were Barbie. It were these shows that these movies that everybody was like, I have to watch this. If you haven't watched this, you're behind. And I'm hoping that's what they get with Skeleton Crew. And even more than that, I want a story that connects with me on a human level. A story that has a great, heartfelt message and/or characters that I can connect with that, hey, at the end of the day, have a happy ending. That is hopeful, encouraging, funny, creative, inspiring. We live in a very dark place right now. And I think everybody can acknowledge that in the world. There's a lot of stuff going on that can just be really tough on people. We need something that's going to inspire us again. And Star Wars, the reason that it's connected with so many people over the years is that we all connected with Luke in some aspect of wanting something more, of dreaming of going somewhere else and going on wild adventures. We need that again. We don't. I understand the importance of having stories that have darker tales and that have some connection to real world problems. I get that. I understand it. But if you want a larger audience, you need to get down to the nitty-gritty of human connection, emotion, family. And that hasn't been shining in these past few shows. And that is in the forefront of shows like The Mandalorian. Whether you like it or not, it is very much these two, this guy, this creature, they're a family, they're a clan. This is them going through the world together. That's what it is. And that's why I think it's been such a success.
And there's a lot of people who go to Star Wars for an escape, just in general.
Me.
Like you want to be transferred to this galaxy far, far away where it doesn't feel realistic or like Earth and our political problems and that sort of thing. And yeah, Star Wars was always political, sure, but it was undertones. Like Andor was like a political thriller that had a Star Wars filter put over it. Like, and it's really good, and I liked it. I haven't gone back to rewatch it yet.
Neither have I. It's depressing.
I think a lot of people want to go back to theaters. They want to see a Star Wars movie in theaters that reminds them of how much fun they had previously. It doesn't mean you don't have to tell you have to tell the same old stories or anything like that. But people want the adventure, they want the escape, and they want to be able to go take their kids to this movie. Because I'll be honest with you, as a parent, the two of us know it. I have 2 kids. Lacey has 2 kids. You have to be very selective on when we're able to get to the theaters. Babysitters are expensive. My mom ain't always around to take care of the kids. I have to carefully choose what I'm going to go see. I'm always going to go see a Star Wars movie. I will always be there opening day. But the people who are like, I like Star Wars. Oh, there's a new movie coming out. I'd love to see it. Oh, it's a dark movie. I can't take my kids to that. I can't go. You got to be able to make it an event where all the families can go together. So we'll see. Hopefully that's the case.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, we have a couple more here. We have Eric Lowry up next, and Eric said, "I've been
What up,
listening
Eric?
for." Hi, Eric. Eric said, "I've been listening for about a year now. My theory now is that the Rey movie is now the movie that comes out for the 50th anniversary." Yeah, agreed, Eric. Yeah, we said it before.
Wait, read that out for the audio people. You kind of rolled
Read-
over that question.
Oh, I did. Wow.
Yeah, a little bit.
Eric Lowry said, "I have been listening for about a year now. My theory now is that the Rey movie is now the movie that comes out for the 50th anniversary." I think I said that whole thing.
You did. You just read it quickly. It's not. It's just so people that are listening on audio know what you said. You just. I think
700
sometimes.
episodes.
Listen, I think sometimes when it's on the screen, we all do it. We just read quickly because it's on the screen, but not everybody has a screen. Eric, wonderful question. Go ahead, John.
No, you go first. I'm too flustered now. I don't even know if I could do the rest of the podcast at this point.
So
My professionalism has been challenged. My confidence is shot.
I just said questions.
Oh.
Remember, like 2 seconds ago when I said like 16 words wrong? It's all good. Eric, first of all, very cool icon. I feel like John would love it because it's Superman and Batman. Very cool. Yeah, John's been saying this for a while. I agree with it that the Rey movie is a perfect thing to bring back the 50th anniversary, episode 10, bring us into the new era of whatever trilogy this is. Not the sequel trilogy, it's now the blank trilogy. Whatever that next
We need
3
a new
movie
term.
set is. I know. What would the term be?
A teatquel.
A teatquel?
No, probably not that.
No.
A trequel?
Treacle?
Yeah, trequel.
Isn't that a dessert? A
Well,
treacle?
sequel's 2, right? So I feel like the try is what it would be. Trequel, I think.
I don't know.
They can also do episode 10 without making it a trilogy, you know?
They could, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to fall in line with what everybody knows because they've built this relationship with the audience of like Star Wars comes in threes.
If they do, that's going to show that they have confidence in what they're doing. Because if they're going to promise a trilogy, they have to make it. So they're committed to it.
Yeah, I agree with this idea. I know you said it before, John. I think, Eric, thanks for bringing it up. It's a great point. The theory is solid from that. We think it's pretty solid. That it would be the perfect thing to do to bring in that new era of Star Wars and to connect audiences back with the Skywalker saga. Because Rey is the Skywalker now. So why wouldn't you do that? So thanks for your question. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Eric. And then we have one more from Frank Grande. How you doing, Frank? I hope you're doing well, buddy. And Frank said, "Who's an underrated character in any era of Star Wars that you would like to see have a series?" Everybody hear that out there?
Oh, stop. You're being ridiculous now.
When I get like hurt, I
Why are you being hurt? I just was having you like I would want you to
like
do
Ron
the same
Burgundy.
thing.
I am too hurt.
Okay. If the tables were turned and I read something, then I kind of glossed over it, and you wanted the audio people to listen, obviously you'd have me read it again. It's not a big deal.
No, I know better.
Okay.
All right. So Frank's question again: Who's an underrated character in any era of Star Wars that you would like to see have a series? Oh man, an underrated character.
Can I give kind of a cheat answer only because someone on Instagram gave this answer and I think it's a really solid one. At Tavada, what's up? How's it going? Said Maz Kanata.
A series about Maz Kanata?
You could do a series where every episode's a different story about someone that comes into her bar.
$250 million?
Who said it was $250 million?
No, I'm kidding. You might as well.
I think that would be a cool series. I think that's a great answer. Thank you for the answer.
Kanata. I mean, I
Yeah.
like Maz Kanata, but a series on Maz Kanata, I don't know about that one.
But did you hear what I just said?
I did.
Every episode is a different bounty hunter or a different person that comes in our bar that explores some part of the universe or some type of creature. It really puts a shine on the creature people. Neil Scanlon, his department, they get to make cool, different aliens and stuff to focus on. I think that would be really cool.
All right.
But I know the funny thing is, when Frank asked this question, I immediately thought of you, John, where you say, I think Star Wars sometimes focuses too much on the secondary people and not on the main characters of the series and of the movies. So this is a question that kind of puts a spotlight on that, which I feel sometimes you're like, let's not focus on Joe Schmo 2 steps out from the camera. Let's keep our story straight first.
Yeah.
Instead of going into secondary characters.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a good enough answer for this without just picking something to pick it, though. Like it's...
Trippin' Ninja says Kit Fisto.
Yeah, you can dig back into those guys for sure. But it also depends on who people consider to be underrated.
Yeah, I think that's a personal, what is it? Subjective is right with the right term of who thinks.
Like, can I call Qui-Gon Jinn underrated?
Is he?
I think he's my favorite Jedi, but no one ever considers him in the greatest Jedi.
I mean, that's up to you, John. If you think he's underrated, that people don't appreciate him as much, then yeah, that would be a perfect answer.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and I know they've done younger Qui-Gon with Tales of the Jedi, and I think in some comics and books, but I think a young Qui-Gon series to show how he became sort of this rebellious rogue Master Jedi could be pretty cool, because they can tell any story they want, really. You just have to follow any of the things that they applied to him in the prequels, the Dooku element, all that stuff. I think that could be cool. And I could probably think of a better pick, but I think Qui-Gon's underrated, so that's going to be my pick.
I'm going to say Zori Bliss. I think the whole Spice Runners that weren't really explained in The Rise of Skywalker, and then she pops up at the end that, like, weirdly we were pumped because Babu didn't die, which, by the way, was a note from Steven Spielberg not to kill him, to make sure at the end he shows up, that you're like, see this little guy, he didn't die. See, here he is. Hey, that was Steven Spielberg, which is hilarious. I think that whole kind of Spice Runner world, underworld stuff is cool, but I wouldn't want like an Andor take on it. I want more of like a funny, jokey Solo take on it. Like, I want the vibes from Solo where it's, we're trying to figure this out. We don't really know what's going on, but we're going to get it. And you have like this little crew you're putting together. That's the vibe I would want from the Zori.
Take that helmet off, Carrie Russell.
I mean, please. She's got that eyeliner. You got to see her at least have the eyeliner.
And that hair. Don't cut the hair this time, Felicity.
Yeah, don't cut the hair. Some other ideas in the chat were Max Rebo's show, Pelimato, a couple other, Master Dooku.
A Babu Frick show, I see.
Babu Frick, Style of Taxi. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, Frank. That was a great question. Really got us chatting. And now we're going to head into a different part of the show. Where are we going, John?
Resistance transmissions.
Were you trying to say that like me?
Mm-hmm.
Was that I feel like you're really hurt by me having you reread the question, and it's now pouring into every other segment of the show.
Oh, we'll talk after the show.
Oh no.
No, I'm just kidding.
That's like when a parent, you're out with your parents, something happens, and they're like, "We'll talk when we get home," and you're like, "Oh no." Anyway, guys, this is Resistance Transmissions. So this is a part where you guys get to be part of the show. John puts up a crazy, wacky situation on Twitter and or Blue Sky, X. I know some people call it. I still, no matter what, every article I read about social media or anything, people always call it X/Twitter. Like everywhere, they still call it that. Yeah. But anyway, we put up the scenario and you guys give your answers. I don't know what the scenario is. I don't know what the question was. I don't know what you guys said. And we see how this goes. So people in the chat are saying I'm in trouble now. I know. I'm gonna just
get out of here.
Disappear quickly. Go into the witness
protection.
You guys have
no idea, man.
All right. The situation is with The Mandalorian and Grogu currently filming, Din Djarin has made us burn our social media account to see what fans are saying about the next hashtag Star Wars movie. What is his handle? First up, we have Andrew Staley at Deuce_Staley. We just had Andrew on the show before. Thank you, Andrew. He said, at dude, where's my Razor Crest?
That movie is so stupid. But
It really is.
yeah,
But it
so
always
funny.
comes up. I feel like it's just like one of those things.
Sweet.
Mike Ramori's up at Drum Jedi. He's also in the chat. What up, Mike? He said at Baby Yoda Dad 6969.
Mike, were you that guy in your baseball team that wore number 69? Were you that guy, Mike?
Next is Nora
Nice
Hal
play,
at
though.
Nora Hal. Thank you so much. Said at I'm just Din.
Nice. I could see a musical number.
I'm just Din. Ryan Davis at Ryan Q Davis. What up, Ryan? Said brown eyes 1138. He's got those big puppy dog eyes.
Mm.
Terry Mack on Blue Sky at the Datalorian. That wouldn't give it away at all. Also, I'm pretty sure someone else, like 6 other people, have this handle, the Datalorian. Then we have Pedro at Pedro Gringas. What up, Pedro? Said at not Boba Fett. It's not him. It almost was him, but it's not him.
Not him.
And last but not least is Mr. Doctor at Dale Pumas Dale, who said dudes for helmets. Just a couple of dudes.
Like
Guys, thank you so much. If you want to be on the show, make sure to follow us on social media at TRB Podcast. Make sure to let us know how we're doing. Leave us reviews, share the episodes. That's the best way for people to find us, get people talking, and have people join our community, which is always a good time. Back to you,
Yeah.
John.
You don't have to do the back to you thing. It's just me.
I like doing it.
Yeah.
Back to you, John.
Just like when you call me on the phone and you go, "Hello, Mr. Hoey," and I'm like, "Can you stop?"
I always,
doing that?"
every time I call John on the phone, I go, "Hello, Mr. Hoey."
Yeah, and I roll my eyes so far that I could see behind me. But then I always end the call by saying, "You take care now," and Lacey
I
doesn't
hate
like
that.
that. So
hate that.
that's how I get my revenge.
The last dig in right at the end.
Don't let the Jedi fool you. Revenge is nice. All right.
John and I work on revenge. It's like basically constantly one-ups.
Yeah, revenge is great. All right. Thank you to everybody for listening and watching and being a part of TRB. We appreciate it. Spread the word, tell your friends. And also, just a heads up, we have another podcast called Nerdy and Nice where we talk about all the other movies and TV and franchises that we like in the way we love Star Wars. So if you haven't yet, check it out. Nerdy and Nice, Apple, Spotify, on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Rate us over there. We're trying to grow that show as well. And it's all under the TRB banner. So it means a great deal to us as we do both shows now. So thank you very much for that. And a big thank you to all of our patrons. Patreon.com/TRB podcasts. Phase 5 is coming soon. We're not going to
I'm going to miss phase 4.
Phase 4 is gone. Phase 5 of our Patreon and just phase 5 of TRB is coming soon. More details to come. We do not like, we take the James Gunn approach. We do not like to announce things until we know for sure that we have them done.
They've been locked in.
Yeah. So that's coming. If you support our podcast in any way and you like what we do, consider supporting us on Patreon. Tiers start at $5. We have exclusive videos and podcast content over there for both Nerdy and Nice stuff and, of course, the Resistance broadcast Star Wars stuff. And we have a big shout out to our generals and spice runners: Carmelo, John Reese, Jetta Rosewater, Frank Grande, Nick Kratz, Chris Morales, Brian Smith, Danny, Mike Ramori, Brendan McLaughlin, Sneaky Zebra, Dave Hornack, Jolton Jedi DiMaggio, Colin Cormier, Stephen Garrow, and our newest general who signed up for a year, Sachi, is here.
What up, Sachi?
General Sachi is here. I can't wait to meet Sachi, get to know Sachi, and get Sachi to know everyone in the base, because our Discord server, especially with how crappy Twitter's become, is just an awesome place to hang. And then the Spice Runners: David Probus, Neil Shaw, Kendall Gellner, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, and the Fort Worthian, and everybody who supports TRB in any way possible. thank you. And yes, the people have been asking, new t-shirts and stuff are also coming. A lot of stuff is coming. Trust us, we're working on it hard behind the scenes. Those little duck legs are moving under the water, baby, as we coast along here. But again, no new TRB next week because I will be on vacay.
Well, no live show.
Right, but we are putting out our interview with Steve Sansweet and Ann Newman from Rancho Obi-Wan because they are running a fundraiser for their museum next Saturday. So that'll be coming out Monday. So we look forward to you checking that out. We're actually going to be recording it in about 20 minutes if we want to peel back the curtain. So we have that coming, and then Nerdy Nights coming Monday too, but there will be no Nerdy Nights obviously the week after, but we don't take that much time off, So everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. But we will see you next time. We hope you all have a wonderful weekend. If you are down in hurricane territory, we hope you're safe. We hope you're all right. Keep us posted, of course, if you're in the TRB base. And I already see people from the TRB base reaching out to each other who live around there. I saw Mike reaching out to Frank. That's all good stuff. Our community is the best, and they show why every single day. So we'll see you next time from us here at the Resistance Broadcast. So until then, we'll see you around, kids.